Everybody, it's Michael from GetFitOver40.com. And yeah, I'm sort of in my office here. I normally do these videos in my gym, but my daughter and her friend are actually in the gym and they're using it. They're doing like a little mini workout, whatever, they're in there. So I didn't want to kick them out. I want to encourage that. So I thought, I could kick them out to make the video or just make the video somewhere else. So here I am. Anyways, I'm not sure how the lighting's going to be because I got crazy bright light from the side. So I've added a little light from this side, and then I got this dark background. I might be washed out, but I have my mic on, so hopefully you can hear what I'm saying, and what I'm talking about is more important than how I look, and more important than my daughter getting kicked out of the gym. Anyway, so what is this video about? I've got my notes on the computer in front of me. So it's being on a diet versus eating whatever you want. So which one really is easier to do, okay? I mean, a lot of people think that dieting is so hard to do because you gotta be so strict, you gotta be so focused and determined to be on a diet. Whereas, if you don't have to worry about what you're eating, it's just super easy. And so let's talk about that a little bit. I'm not gonna talk about the health aspects as much. I'm gonna focus on, how easy, the ease of which one or which one's harder or whatever to do. So yeah, I mean, we all understand that obviously eating healthy, generally speaking, is better for your body, better for your fitness, all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about food selection. I'm going to be kind of looking at my notes a little bit as I go here. Being on a diet means you're going to have obviously less food options, right? So, I mean, what that means is you're going to have to be a little bit more picky about your meal timing, your meal choices, calories, things like that, macros. You're going to have to be aware of all that stuff. And so you are restricted into what you can eat, especially in social environments and stuff. You have to plan for these things. There's definitely a lot more planning that goes on, okay? And obviously, you have to focus on eating less processed foods and foods that are, maybe even sometimes pricier. So there's the price aspect to eating healthy or eating on a diet. Whereas, eating whatever you want is just literally, you're passing by a McDonald's, whatever, you grab it, you can grab the cheapest, most caloric food you want, so that there again, it doesn't matter, you go to a social event, you can have whatever you want. So food selection is obviously going to be a lot easier for people that aren't on a diet. So I would say the diet side in terms of ease of use or ease of being able to do it, when you're not on a diet, you've definitely got the clear winner right there. Okay, so hunger versus overindulging. So there's two sort of ways to look at this. And, I'm no expert, I guess, but I have gone both extremes. I've done the dieting to get down to like 4 to 5% body fat. I've also done the 2 weeks of binge eating where I just basically cram food as much as I can. It's just gluttony in some sense, and in some ways, the way I look at it now, looking back. And so I kind of know how it feels to be on the extreme diet versus the overindulging side of things where you're eating kind of too much. And whether you're a person, sometimes you're kind of not necessarily at both extremes, but you may be, dieting a little bit, or the person that's, eating whatever you want, but you tend to eat too big of meals once in a while and get the effects of that overindulging kind of thing. So keep that in mind. You might fit somewhere in between, or you might be at the either end of the spectrum. So when it comes to hunger, obviously when you're on a diet, there are going to be times of the day that you're going to feel hungry, right? You're going to be between meals because you're restricting calories and because you've got food cravings, because your body will sometimes crave food you shouldn't have, especially at the beginning of the diet, or if you've been dieting for a long time and your calories are really low. But if you're on a reasonable diet, it shouldn't be too bad. I also like to try to do this thing where I look at where my body sort of craves food the most, and I crave food the most in the evening, so dinner time and before I go to bed. So those are my most caloric meals. I tend to not be craving food as much in the morning and afternoon, so those are my lighter meals. Does that mean I'm not hungry in the morning and afternoon? Sure, I have my protein. I try to keep protein high and have my shake and my protein bar and stuff like that in the afternoon, and I stretch it out, right? But yeah, I'm going to feel some hunger. That's definitely going to happen. Is it the worst feeling in the world? No. Once you can control that and understand it, it's not really a big deal. It's really not that uncomfortable even. It's sort of in the back of your mind, but you can kind of put it out there. It's not really that hard to deal with, especially once you've been doing it for a while. On the other side of the coin, you've got the overindulging. So, and I can say this from experience, when you eat too much food, it doesn't feel very good. You're going to feel bloated. Your stomach's going to be like just super puffy. You're going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes you can have digestion problems, heartburn, all of these things. Very hard to put out of your mind. If you're feeling that way, it's not something you can overlook. In a sense, I feel that that's a worse feeling than being a little bit hungry in between meals every once in a while. And like I said, once you've been on a diet, once you've sort of learned to train yourself and not be a slave to food, it's not a big deal. Whereas the overindulging side of things, you eat too much, you tend to feel terrible afterwards. And then shortly after that, it's almost like you want to eat again, even though you're still kind of full. So that's a really weird sort of circle of events that happens. And that's what I found. I would eat something, feel crappy because I ate it, and then almost immediately start looking for what else to eat. And so it's just a very vicious cycle that can happen when you overeat. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I think the worser of the two evils is the overindulging and feeling like bloated, feeling sick to your stomach, having heartburn. It's like just this, again, vicious cycle that happens when you overeat and overindulge. So I think, not being on a diet, not having a diet plan, that can happen super easy, the overindulging, and you can feel kind of brutal because of it. So I think that's worse. All right, enjoyment of food. So when you're on a diet versus when you're allowed to eat whatever you want. Here again, the thing is, when you're on a diet, some people say, oh, how can you eat that? How can you not have the sugars and the fatty foods and all the carbs and all the things and all those delicious, red meats and all those things and the bacon and sure, having that stuff, when you don't have it, every once in a while, you're going to crave it. You're going to think, man, I could sure go for some bacon. Man, I could sure eat a donut right about now. Man, I'd like to have some cream soup or cream sauce on my whatever. That's going to happen. But what kind of happens is your body gets used to having less sugar. It gets used to having less fat. It gets used to having, lower calories in general, smaller meals. And really what happens is you grow to like it and enjoy it. And because you're not always so full of food, you are actually between meals, you get hungry. And so when you do eat the meal, you're hungry for that meal. And being hungry at a meal is way better than not being hungry at a meal in terms of satisfaction, right? So obviously, sit down at a plate, you eat the meal, you're hungry. It's awesome. When I was doing my binge eating, I really wasn't hungry at each meal. I was just eating because it's dinner time. I had been snacking between meals. I would jam more food into my stomach and feel bloated and uncomfortable and not fully be satisfied by that meal because I wasn't hungry in the first place. Again, you might be at not as extreme as I'm taking this. You might be somewhere in the middle. But I think the more hungry you are at a meal, the more satisfying it's going to be, right? And if you can learn to not be so dependent on salts, sugars, and spices and just enjoy the food for what it is, then you really learn to enjoy the food for what it is. It's not, food should have a taste. It shouldn't taste like butter. It shouldn't taste like salt. It shouldn't taste like a bunch of spices. And that's what, or it shouldn't taste like fat. And that's what people have to do to make their food have more flavor over time because the taste of the food isn't enough, right? And having all of that stuff added to your food is not making it more healthy, is not taking down the calories. They're not the kind of nutrition or nutrients you want. So again, I think enjoyment of food, when you're on a proper diet and you're eating healthy and your body learns to love the food, it learns to enjoy it. It's healthier food. It's more natural. A lot of times it's less processed. So you're eating quality food. Your body learns to enjoy it. You're learning to give your stomach some rest and actually be hungry for each meal and enjoy those meals. So again, I think being on a diet, again, wins here overall. Enjoyment of food. Again, I enjoy food way more when I'm dieting than when I'm not dieting. And, because I'm having a steak, at the keg or whatever, but I'm not enjoying it as much because whatever, it's like I can do whatever I want. Whereas if I did have a steak at the keg when I'm on a diet, it's a major treat. It's kind of like a cheat meal, but it's awesome because like every meal is like I won the lottery, right? So I hope you understand what I'm saying. So overall mood and mindset. So, it's really no big secret that, when you're eating whatever you want, making bad choices, feeling bloated, overeating, overindulging. You know it. You know you shouldn't be eating the bag of chips. You know you shouldn't be having the donuts. You know you shouldn't be eating so much food. You know you're putting on weight. All of these things, right? You know it's happening. Your mood isn't going to be great because you know you should be doing something better. You know you should be on a better food program. Whether you want to call it a diet or not, to me, a diet is just making better choices. It's a life choice. It doesn't mean that, I'm always really on a diet, with the exception of maybe post-competition when I let myself go for a week to 2 weeks. Other than that, I'm kind of always on some sort of a diet, right? I'm always on some sort of a program, whether I'm counting my nutrition exactly or not, but I have a good idea in my head what I'm eating. I've been doing this for long enough that I know. And so, I'm really always on a diet. It's a life choice. And so, I feel good about myself when I'm on a diet. I feel like I'm making proper choices. My stomach feels good. My body weight is where it needs to be. I'm getting the proper nutrition to be healthy, to have my immune system where it needs to be. I'm getting the right kind of hormones in my body because of the food choices that I make and the fact that I'm not overweight. Right? When you're overweight and you're eating poor choice or food choices, your body isn't getting the right nutrition. Your hormones are like out of whack. You're not feeling good because of these foods that are in your system that are weighing you down. And so your mood is going to be not so good, right? So I definitely feel that people that are on a diet that's reasonable, that, a life choice type diets, they feel better about themselves. Their bodies feel better. They look better. Everything about them is going to be better in terms of physiology, okay? So again, being on a diet in terms of, is it easy or not to do? I think yes, because what's easier? Being in a good mood, feeling good about yourself, or feeling shitty about yourself, knowing that you're making bad choices, knowing that you're gaining weight, knowing that your body is not where it needs to be, that your health is not where it needs to be. Okay, so I think you kind of get my point. Really, the only benefit to not being on a diet is that food is cheaper and more readily available, and you're not restricted. Other than that, I think the clear winner here is being on some sort of healthy diet in pretty much every way. Okay, so in closing, I'd say add a little bit of fitness to it, and maybe some weight training, a little bit of outdoor activity, that kind of thing, walking, biking, cycling. If you can't do that, some swimming, maybe a little bit of indoor treadmill or walking on the treadmill or even running and stuff. I'm not a big fan of overdoing the cardio, but you definitely need to get a little bit of physical activity in there one way or another. If you add that into the picture, it's just going to polish everything off. Everything's going to come together. You're going to feel great. You're going to look great. And after all, that's what it's all about. All right. Thanks for watching another GetFitOver40.com video. Don't forget to subscribe. Check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, take care.